My name is James. I was shot and paralyzed at the age of 15. I am now a wheelchair racer.
I see mostly the highway, the white line on the right side of the street. I don't think about the race. I think about my kids. I think about the bills that need to be paid, what home improvements need to be done. I think about everything other than the race. I'm feeling the hurt, but I try to block that out of my mind. I'm thinking about everything that goes on in my life. I'm from the southwest side of the city of Chicago.
My neighborhood had a little bit of everything.
You know, there's so many people that came from Mexico, started with literally nothing, worked hard, bought buildings, invested in businesses, and there's a lot of people who become successful, and they started right there in a little village, 26th Street.
My mother, she worked for an airline, and she spent a lot of hours at work. My father, he ran a catering business, and so he spent a lot of time at work as well.
I wanted to become a success and keep going in my world. And naturally, I was always taught that if you were success and you brought your success with your family, then they were success.
Jimmy and Tony were always together. Probably more than they should have been, because now I realize I found out a lot of things that Tony wouldn't tell me or Jimmy wouldn't tell me because he covered up for each other all the time. But they were always thick.
The people taking care of us, it wasn't like they were continuously holding our hands or watching what we were doing. It was very easy for me just to get on my bike and go down the block and, get involved in something I shouldn't have been involved in. I had a little too much independence.
Hey, Mr. Wenzel! It's Mr. Wenzel. He's the one that used to...
How you doing?
Mr. Wenzel used to take care of me when my mom and dad weren't home on time.
Yeah.
or for lunch, I'd run over there, they make me soup right there in the back. That's my old kitchen right there. My mom used to yell at me through the window right there.
Yeah. Quit jumping on the roof.
I grew up loving sports. I played sports in my backyard every day.
You had the park district programs, and my mother and father, they got me involved in a lot of those opportunities.
Fathers put their sons in the mountains first. My father, he worked very hard. He couldn't be there for me and put me on the field first. When you're out there trying your best at what it is that you want to do, when you're continuously put on the side, it just becomes frustrating.
We were like on the borderline of two different environments.
This used to be like a racial borderline. On that side of the street, it was always black. On this side of the street, it was always Mexican.
And there was always fighting going on between the two. It was very easy for me to be singled out as I would get closer to my house, and I had fewer and fewer friends walking with me, and I would be jumped. And there was many times I'd come home with my nose busted. Maybe I'd end up with scars on my head.
And then finally, I think he took up with friends to protect him, and things just kind of escalated from there.
He was a good student. He liked sports. He played on a few of our teams, and then he would start not coming. Probably about 6th grade. He didn't care. His grades began to drop off.
When you see the gang members walking down the block, 5 or 6 of them wearing the same colors, having the same haircuts, there was a unity of these guys all together. It was like, man, that's cool. I want to be a part of these guys.
Parents are very naive in that area, and I was very naive. I came from a little farm town, USA, in Indiana. I didn't even hear about gangs until I was in Chicago, and I'm watching the news. I'm thinking, gee, how terrible. Of course, when you watch the news, that's the news. It never happens to you.
I think he did his best to try to keep it away from me, but after I got, older, you pick up things in school and on the streets and when you're with your friends, etc. So, he was being well known throughout the neighborhood.
Rogelio, which is a baby Sinbad, he was one of the guys that I was trying to be like. He was like one of the biggest graffiti artists. He would draw them in a notepad first, or I'd draw them on pieces of paper, and we would always compare whose was better.
Spray painting and murals on the walls, selling drugs, acts of violence, the fights. And it all comes down to just one thing, just being known.
They used to call it the jack rolling, where an older Mexican man walking down the street drunk, they'd jump him for his money or his belongings. This could be our uncle or grandfather, you know, you're robbing from your own people.
First you threaten, and I threatened, and I threatened, and then I bribed. I don't know if I can do this. Then finally, I talked to one of the officers. Excuse me. Officer Mays came to the house and told us about all the troubles he was in.
Yeah, I knew I was doing wrong. I didn't care. Once you feel like these are your friends, these are your guys, these are the guys that you're gonna be with, then you kind of feel comfortable as to, you know, this is who I am now.
It was a typical Friday. Driving around, drinking, getting high. The 6 of us get out. We begin to walk down the block.
And as we can see down the corner, 2 guys got dropped off from the car, and it looked pretty normal. By the time I looked back up at the guys, both guys were face to face with me, and they both asked me where was I from. And since nobody responded, they opened up fire on us and they shot us.
And all I can remember hearing is all the footsteps of everybody running. I couldn't feel half my body.
It's the most horrible thing to have your phone ring at 2 in the morning and they tell you this is a hospital and your son's here. So I said, is this serious? And she says, I think you better get here.
I can still see that morning. I went into the emergency room. His stomach had swollen with internal bleeding, and he was shaking, and I didn't think he was going to live.
It felt like I was just very heavy, sluggish, like some crazy drug that just took over my body. I saw Rogelio, baby Sinbad. He was bleeding all over the place. We were lying next to each other. He was grabbing my hand, telling me, don't worry. He was trying to tell me that I was gonna be okay, and that when we get out of the hospital, that we'll go back and get him. The reality of finding out that he's the one who died. I think that that's what kind of hurts more.
When you're 8 years old, you don't take it seriously. My mom and dad finally came home later that evening advising that that your brother had been shot. And the irony behind it was when they said that, the TV in the background was on and the news came on saying that James Lilly, 15-year-old, was shot at this location, blah, blah. So then that's when what they were telling me kind of sunk in when I saw it on TV.
At first I was sad and I was crying that my friend was dead. And it wasn't until probably about a week later that I was actually, holding a conversation, understanding why I couldn't move my legs, and then everything kind of started to fall in its place.
I heard about it at the police station that James had been shot in the city, and that's all I knew at the time. And my personal feelings were that maybe he's not going to come back here. Not that he would die, but maybe that would open his eyes right then. But he was right back on the streets after that with his wheelchair.
The focus of my disability and me being shot was glamorized. It really went to my head. I felt like this is going to be my life. I'm going to spend the rest of my life becoming deeper and deeper involved in this organization.
Even to some of the older policemen now, when you mention his name, they say, oh, that shithead. That's how they refer to him, because he was just a heartless little punk when he was involved with those gangs.
I did do some time while I was there. Some of my own guys broke into my place to take everything that was in there. When I finally confronted everybody denied it.
I also looked around and I realized that all the so-called friends, they were stealing and robbing from each other, abusing other guys' wives, girlfriends.
I had a few friends who had gotten locked up, had a few friends who died. I was living in a dump. My mother, she would sneak over to my house. She would always want to make sure that I was fed. And I think my eyes started to open a little more. Yeah, when I started to realize how bad it's gotten, that's when I also realized that, for me to get out, it's going to be so difficult.
So I grabbed a bag of clothes and I Basically was hiding inside of a basement for about 3 months, just staying away from everybody. I started to study for my GED, and then on one of my routine checkups at the hospital, I met this guy, and he was sharing with me about wheelchair basketball and what wheelchair basketball was all about. When I really got frustrated with basketball was after losing. I mean, we lost a lot of games, and I had told him that I'm just sick of losing.
After several months, I came out to talk to somebody within the gang. They pulled me out of the van and they began to beat me. The idea was to kill me. This is one of the ways that they take you out of the gang. When I came out of the hospital this time, I went to stay with a friend that lived in Dallas, Texas.
And that's when the new positive things in my life began to happen. I started to go back to school. I got back into sports. And I'm a very, very competitive person. I do not like to lose. And in wheelchair racing, it's independent. It's up to you. You don't need a team to get across that finish line. I've been racing ever since.
I came back to Illinois to go to school in Champaign, Illinois, which is 2.5 hours from here. But, you know, when I came here to Chicago, I came on a weekend, and I ended up meeting Nora in a party. We exchanged phone numbers, and here we are.
When you first meet James, it's his personality that strikes you first, than the fact that he's in a chair. It's kind of like you forget about it. When you're first attracted to somebody, you're just so in love, you don't really think about all that stuff.
When I was away in college, really what I wanted to do with my life was to come back and speak with the kids and keep them away from gangs.
I never succeeded on getting a bachelor's degree or anything like that. But, you know, to be able to come back to a community and say, hey, this is not what life has to be like. You can change. I think that means so much more. When I see their faces and I see that they're really listening, then it makes me want to come back and do it again. I want to say thank you so much for having me in your school today.
In 1993, I won 3 gold, 1 silver, 1 bronze in the international competitions in London. But then when I came back, I thought, well, what's next? And I thought about the race that I had always wanted to compete in, the world's longest wheelchair race through Alaska.
When I read that article about these guys that were doing 367 miles, I thought, man, these guys are crazy. That's nuts. But then at the same time, that was the type of attention that I always pursued.
Yeah, I am excited. I can't wait to get this race started. I've done this race already 3 times. To be able to say I've competed in a race that is the world's longest, it's an accomplishment. To have a wife that's understanding, that accepts all this and supports me with this, you know, that's incredible as well. No, Christian, no. Sit down and eat. No, I'm going to show my real side. We eat. Actually, Mom, yeah, you two sit together and let Christian jump on you like how he normally does. And then I'll be mean to Jimmy, like how I normally do. Get right here, Jimmy.
You don't want this, do you?
No, the real family's coming out right now. It's very difficult for her because it's hard maintaining the household by yourself. You guys just pretend like the camera's not here.
You gotta pretend like the camera's not here. Okay, turn around.
For me to be away in Alaska for almost a week and a half to 2 weeks, doing this race and leaving her alone with the kids, you know, that's difficult. If it weren't for her support, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing.
Oh, you need to brush a little more than that, Christian. No, brush a little more than that. It's difficult, but I know that it's part of what he loves to do. It's good for him too, you know, keeps him healthy.
Hey, you put that on film? How dare you? There's a lot of people out there who could do this race faster than me. I don't know how many of them are willing to go the distance. I mean, that is a long way to be putting on the mileage. There's a lot of wear and tear on your body as well as your equipment. I had no idea what Alaska was like. Not studying in school, I didn't realize how many mountains were in Alaska. I didn't realize the different changes of weather that takes place in 1 hour in Alaska.
The race is called the Settlers Ultra Challenge, and it runs from Fairbanks to Anchorage. Now it's 267 miles over 6 days.
The first day is going to be the hardest day of the race, where we climb out of Fairbanks, which is basically all mountains and hill climbs. My weakness is my hills. Thomas Garash is excellent on the hills. He's a very strong hill climber. I think if I would have known that he was one of the athletes I would be competing against, I think I would have done a lot more hill training. Damn, why am I doing this? Hand cycling is much easier. I won't go to hand cycle just because I've been wheelchair racing for 13 years and my focus is to continue on trying to win. So I don't have the time to put into hand cycling to try to win at hand cycling.
I had a flat tire in the very, very beginning, coming up the first couple of hills.
Flat? Yeah, I can't say I had a little wheel. How long were you down for?
I was able to fix that and get back up, but that kind of took the motivation away from me as far as like trying to keep up with Thomas, because at that point Thomas was already way ahead of me.
That hill took everything out of me. My body was just cramping, my forearms were cramping, my goddamn shoulder was giving. Then the next thing I know, my tire goes flat.
I was hurting. I was hurting bad.
How much time do you think the flat cost you?
About 10 minutes maybe. It's alright. It's part of racing.
Day 1 and 2 were just terrible. I really don't know what it was. It was like a stomach virus that I had. I was sick while I was pushing, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't go to the bathroom or anything. I had to just keep going. It was very disgusting. It also took a lot of my heart out of the race.
Thomas put a big gap on me on day 1 and 2.
But a race is a race, anything can happen. I figured I'm gonna keep him within eyesight. And if I see that he's got a flat tire or he's having some kind of mechanical or a physical breakdown, I'm right there and I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna take off and I'm gonna set the gap.
It seemed for me like the hills were harder than they were last time I was here. I think they made them steeper.
You think so?
Day 3, I remember waking up with just a burst of energy, and coming out of the park was the first big hill. And I just thought, you know, I want to give him a taste of what's inside me. I think I put a good surprise on him as far as, you know, what I'm capable of doing. I do remember when he caught up to me, you know, he kind of smiled, and I remember telling him, this is the one stage you are not going to beat me.
What's the time? What time did Thomas get?
Let me check.
Ian, what did Thomas get? Shit?
Yes, it was close.
Tell me that. What was the time?
You were 29:42. Thomas was 29:29.
I had some money on you, you know?
I had money on me too.
How's your race?
It was good.
Yeah?
I wanted to win it. I didn't get it.
That's pretty good though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's real good. It's not good enough though. I wanted to win. I crossed the finish line knowing I won. I just had it inside me. I was just like, yeah, I finally got him. He's a strong guy though. He's strong, he's focused. You know, he's a great athlete. You know, this got me. I put everything I had inside this chair today. And I'm a competitor. You know, I wake up in the middle of the night to train. And I don't train to take second.
I don't cry over being in a wheelchair. The only time I cry is when I see my son say, "Dad, I wish that you could walk." Those are things that will make me cry. Mostly it's the inconvenience of living in an inaccessible house.
It's a lot easier for me to run upstairs and grab things and, you know, with the kids. I get tired of going back up and down.
Maybe it's taking out the garbage, maybe it's taking the groceries in the house. It frustrates her, and when it frustrates her, it makes me sad inside. I try to pretend that I'm not disabled, or I try to prove that even if I'm disabled, I can still do these things. We had a difficult year this year because the Cub Scouts hold their meetings in the basement of the church. I don't feel comfortable crawling up and down the stairs. Children are cruel. I mean, how many kids out there are gonna say something to Jimmy in school or make fun of him because his father's in a wheelchair? After making a request to the Cub Scouts to move to an accessible location, you know, they failed to do so. All his friends in school are a part of this Cub Scouts now, and my son is not part of Cub Scouts. If I weren't disabled, then my son wouldn't have to deal with this.
It's funny because sometimes I expect him not to feel sorry for himself because he's such a strong person. And he never talked about his disability in a negative way when we first met. It wasn't until recently where he's sometimes he gets down about it, and I'm just like, James, that's not like you. You know, don't do that, you know.
I get pissed off and angry and say, damn it, why do I have to be in a wheelchair? This sucks. But at the same time, I was the idiot that chose to do everything that caused me to be in a wheelchair. So I have nobody to blame but myself.
I lost many friends, but nobody was as close, and there was never the significance between me and him. I want Rogelio's mom and dad to know that, you know, he's never forgotten him. You know, there's many gang members that die, and after they die, after about a year, all the guys forget about them. You know, I made that commitment that, you know, I won't forget them. I guess I'm not too dedicated because I couldn't find them quick enough. I think we're gonna paint this thing fluorescent orange.
Nora.
As far as what I put my mother and father through, I can never replace the bad things that I've done. But I always feel that if I could tell them that I've done something positive and share with them that I'm doing something really good with myself, I can now make them happy.
Jimmy, get out of here. Now.
Now, how do I go back to it?
Go away. Get out of here now.
Beautiful grandma.
Would you get out of here?
Yeah, but they just feel that my objective is to talk to the camera and say it's my mom and dad's fault that, you know, I got shot. That's not the way it is at all. I'll always say me and my father never had the greatest relationship. You know, we didn't have a relationship where we hung out, you know, played baseball.
Jim's always had a hard head. You know, you could thump him and 2 minutes later he's off and running.
I can't say he doesn't love me. It'd be outright wrong for me to say that.
How about you? Do you love him?
Yeah, I do.
What's the friction?
My mom seems to think that we're like the same type of magnets. Where, you know, well, that's it. You know, we're the two negatives, and we just can't click.
We fought constantly, all the time.
I wish I could have changed some of the things that I did. You know, but it all goes back to choices, and I chose to do what I did. And, you know, like I was telling my mom, you know, sometimes in life you don't get a second chance. You know, I'll never be able to go back and get a second chance of walking back out of that parking lot. My last days were walking right there.
Go ahead. Am I the only child? No, there's a twist on that. My brother, he's a police officer now. I never knew this until about 2 years ago. He said that one time he was asleep and he heard somebody beating me up. He said he looked out the bedroom window and he saw it was a police officer. He said that memory stayed with him for his entire life, and he wanted to make sure that he were to become a police officer to be a good police officer.
He's a great dad. Very attentive with his kids, very involved, very loving, but also strict. I mean, he's a wonderful father.
His kids, he's trying harder than I did, which I'm proud of him. He's trying more family, barbecues, and things of this nature.
He's set on making sure that Jimmy and Christian don't follow in his footsteps.
I'm gonna let him know this is what your father did. He knows I was a gang member. He knows I used to sell drugs. He knows I used to do drugs. He knows I got shot, but my life has changed.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, I'm nervous.
A few of you may remember James Lilly. James was a very challenging personality when he was a student here 20 to 25 years ago. James was involved with gangs and, as often happens, was tragically injured in a shooting. James has been confined to a wheelchair since this incident. From time to time, I heard many reports that James has turned his life around. He tried to contact me on several occasions. I resisted those contacts for many years. I was concerned that his new attitude and commitment to change his life was less than genuine. I was wrong. Life is much too short to hold grudges. Sometimes second chances are deserved and earned. After quite a bit of soul searching, I have agreed to this visit. I'll be looking forward to the visit.
Hey, it means a lot.
It's been a long time, buddy.
It means a lot. It does. Thank you.
You better not show this film till after I retire, because I tell you what, they're going to think they got a big baby running the school district here. You know, I think your name was on here. We finally had it sanded off. He was never disrespectful to me. He was respectful even in his disobedience.
Hi. How are you? This is my friend James.
How you guys doing?
Mom and Dad worked a lot of hours. James was the de facto babysitter for Tony, and I was concerned about with who James was hanging around with. The teachers are looking forward to seeing him, though.
How you been, man? Long time no see.
You haven't changed at all. You look the same.
I am neither in the face.
It's really an uplifting and makes me just feel proud and you know, almost choked up to the point to see what he's accomplished. Because I remember after he was shot and seeing him in the wheelchair, he still was pretty defiant. And I remember him being involved with tagging in the building.
He came back to graffiti the building and had somebody lift him out of his wheelchair to do it. That was the last straw. Call the cops, press charges. That was it. I said, now we didn't learn something here, you know.
You remember that, James?
That's when I went out for recess every day.
No. Tell him later. This is going well. Let's not screw it up. Gifted artist. They told me he drew a cover for the yearbook once when he was in school here. And he says everybody thought it was great. I think they ended up using it somewhere in the yearbook. And it was only after we had 8 million of them printed that we found some little gang crap. Oh God, were we mad? Oh man, it's a good thing I didn't find you that day, man. I would have beat the. We would have had a discussion over it, all right? You know.
You start thinking, well, I don't care if I get locked up. I'll spend 2 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years. I come back out. It's no big deal. It is a big deal because that's a chunk of your life you can never get back. 5, 4, 3, 2. He then said, you were shot, the bullet's right here in the middle of your back. He said, as of today, there is no cure for paralysis. You become paralyzed, you're going to be disabled for life. This is a catheter. Male or female would have to use something just like this in order to urinate. People are coming back out of the penitentiaries and out of the hospitals. They're talking about all the things that they got away with. And that's what I mean as far as like glamorizing it. I started giving up athletics because my family, my mom and my dad, they were not out there enjoying it with me. And you got to do it because you like to do it. And I always found myself telling people I took second. I already said I'm a competitive person. I don't like saying I took second. I like saying I won. Last year, that last day, that last few seconds before you hit that finish line, the emotions that are going through you, immediately I looked at the race director and I said, next year I'm coming back and I'm going to win this race next year. I think if I were to able to win the race, I think that there would be some closure. I think I'd be able to say, wow, I did it. I have no idea if I'd ever want to come back and do it again, because I'm the type of person I might want to come back and win it 2 times or win it 3 times. But just to be able to say that I've won the world's longest marathon. I think I like talking about it more than I like racing. I'm not going to lie about it. I like talking about it. I'm not going to fool with it no more. I try to get in it right now. It's too tight. Really? It's way too tight.
You don't want me to hit it anymore?
No!
Jonathan, I've known him since he was a little boy, and just having him here, it means so much to me.
I've done everything I need to do to prepare for this race. Just, trying to get up and over the hills and being as smart as I can so I don't hurt my body. There's not that much competition here, but if I blow my arms out or I hurt myself physically, then I literally beat myself out of the whole race. And I came out here to prove that I could come out here and win this race.
Liz Griffiths, I'm from Chicago. I'll be James's driver today and for the rest of the week. My job is to keep him safe in traffic, so I'll try and be the best driver I can be.
It was very difficult, mostly for the first couple days. Then also the third day we had a lot of headwind that we've never had before.
I really wish that I had somebody out there fighting the headwind with me. I was thinking last year when Thomas was here and he and I were out there pushing together, you know, the days went by much quicker. I want to see if I can fax my body back home.
This is my 3rd year on the race, and I keep coming back for the racers. It's kind of become my fuel, I think.
How so?
It's just so inspiring to see another human being do what they do. Today we had 3 flats, but Jonathan was out there, man. I had just enough time to like unbuckle my seatbelt and be like, hey, are we okay? You're coming back and you changed the tire. We're like Mario Andretti's team.
Yep.
You know, like I'm hosing him down and got the water. He was like, you know, like leaned up against the side and he's off.
Everybody's strangers to each other and nobody knows anybody. And within 3 or 4 days, everybody's like the best of friends.
Just 2 stages to go. Likewise, Alicia Dana and James Lilly hold insurmountable leads in the women's hand cycle and wheelchair divisions, respectively.
They finished Thursday?
Finished Thursday night.
It's exciting. It's exciting, but it's sad because it's kind of like it's over with now. It's taken a very long time. It's kind of like, wow, I can't believe it's over. My mom was on the phone crying yesterday. They know, how bad I wanted it as well.
In first place, a man who says he's never coming back, but I don't believe it. From Brookfield, Illinois, Mr. James Lilly.
With Alaska, every year, I'll say I don't want to go back. But then every year, I find myself wanting to test myself again.
I'm proud of him. I don't think any of us are quitters. Like you said, give up? No, we never give up. And I think that he'll keep pushing.